All right, guys, so here we have a 2004 EZGO TXT gas. This one is it's another crank no start cart. This one here, we're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff to it. We're going to do a full service, check the brakes, make sure they work, check the lights. Does this have lights? I don't think so. It does. Okay, we'll make sure the lights work. The customer also wants us to quote her a price to replace the seat cushion because it's rotted away. Which is pretty common and typical for these wood back seats. They do have a tendency of starting to rot out once they get wet or if they're left outside for any length of time. So yeah. All right, so let's see what this looks like inside here. This is probably gonna be nasty. See, now that's not terrible, but because it is dirty, she just wants me to change everything. I'm not gonna put the filter back in because I'm thinking we're gonna need to pull that carburetor. Because this one's been sitting for a while and it hasn't been used. It's not terrible, but a little wet. I'm trying to start. Let's make sure we have spark. Okay, we got good spark. So let's check compression. Okay, you can see we got low compression, under 90 psi. Cylinder 1. This cart did not start when I went to pick it up. So like 92 psi on that one. So we know the compression's a bit weak. We're going to adjust it. Now, just to clarify something here, because I see people asking about this quite a bit. These engines are supposed to be adjusted cold, not hot. The EZGO manual says to adjust the valves, the valve lash, when they're cold. That's what EZGO says, and that's what I go by. The valve lash is meant to be adjusted at, or the book calls for 0.004 or 4 thousandths of an inch. I go to 0.006 or 6 thousandths of an inch. And the reason I do that is because these carts get a lot of heavy use. I go to that much higher gap, or that larger gap, because of the heavy use that these engines get. It works, it's fine, it's not gonna hurt the engine. If you really don't wanna go that far, then go to 5 thousandths. That's what I do, and it works, doesn't hurt anything. And again, you gotta do this with the engine cold. Key off. I remove the key just to make sure the engine doesn't crank over. So that's how I do it. You do it how you want to do it. That's how I'm going to do it. I've had good success with that setting. Let's see what we're at first. Can I get that in there? Oh yeah. That's really loose, so that one's got to be tightened up. Now, intake side is usually the side that closes tight. Yeah, see, I can't even get that feeler in there. Let's see if it's at 0.4 or 4 thousandths, just for shits and giggles. Where's 0.4? 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. I'll just humor you, folks. So we know we got to close that one, we got to open that one, and you want to have the cam lobe facing down. That one's tight too. That's how you adjust them. Make sure the cam lobe is down. That one's real loose. Okay, so we definitely have to do a valve adjustment. I'll get you in a little closer here and I'll show you what I mean. All right, so hopefully I can get this for you. But you see that lobe right there that comes up and pushes the rocker arm up? That lobe, when you're adjusting the valves, you want that lobe to be facing straight down, away from the rocker. And then you take your feeler gauge and you slide it in between the rocker. As you can see, this ain't going in between the rocker and the cam, in between that lobe, and that's how you get your feeling. And then when you adjust this valve out to get the correct thickness is when you feel it, when it goes in and slides in, you want to feel just a little bit of resistance where you can feel like it's grabbing in between the two. That's how you know when you have the correct setting. Yeah, it wasn't far out. It wasn't out that far, but it was out far enough. And then what I'll do is I'll keep the feeler gauge in there. So as I'm tightening, I can kind of hold the... There we go. See, now that's just a little too loose. It's not grabbing the... See, I don't like using the wrench on that. I'd rather use the socket because I can hold back on it while I'm turning it so I don't break anything off. Okay, so there it's just biting. Okay. Oh, now it's too tight. There we go. I can't explain how it feels other than it's going to have a little bit of resistance sliding in and out. Like you'll be able to feel it just a little bit. Just a little bit. And I'll work my way down the line here. Now the two outside valves, these are the exhaust, and these are the intake, the two center ones. The two inside ones are the ones that usually, almost always, bind up. Okay, so let's see, this isn't going in. Just give it a lot, wow. Almost like almost a full turn. That was too tight. So now I'm just feeling my resistance. All right, let's go over to the next valve. There we go. Okay, perfect. I'm going to wipe this off here before I put this back together. Wipe it nice and slow so I keep that dirt out. Keep all the dirt off that face there. Okay. Gasket looks okay. It's not ripped. It's not torn. This is my favorite engine in golf carts, but for whatever reason, they either don't make this engine anymore or EZGO stopped using it. I don't really know. I don't know what the whole reasoning behind it is. It's unfortunate because this is a strong engine. Now the problem I have with it is the later generations of this, I believe from 2000, I want to say 2008 and up, they started to cheapen this engine out. Instead of having the cast iron exhaust manifold, they went to the exhaust manifold being part of the engine, part of the block. So the muffler would bolt on the same way. But I've experienced, or I've seen where these things are driven really hard, where the muffler would actually pull out of that manifold. It would rip the bolts right out of it because it was aluminum. I've seen that happen more times than I care to count, which is unfortunate because This is such a good little engine, and it's quiet and it's smooth. It runs way smoother than that Kawasaki engine that's in the club cars and the newer EZGOs. All right, so now we're going to do another compression test. Look at that. See what a difference that made? 152 PSI. No, 155. Look at that. This is a good motor. Or a good engine. 155. That's like air compressor territory right there. All right, now we can throw in... We still may have to pull the carburetor and clean it. I might do that anyway because it's been many, many years since that's been done. Normally I would wash these things before I work on them, just to give myself a nice clean working area. But my pressure washer is not here at the moment. It's over at the storage building. Because we'll be getting carts ready to go back from storage in the next few days to weeks coming up here. All right, we're gonna pull the carburetor. Wow, she smokes like a son-of-a bitch. We're gonna pull the carb and clean it, change the fuel filter out, and flush the fuel lines down too. But yes, this is one of my favorite engines, and this is my favorite generation of EZGO. It's before they went all stupid with their safety crap, and it's not because of EZGO, it's because of people that screwed around with the stuff and somebody got hurt. That looks like it's water, not gas. Let's see here. Let's get my fuel line out. No, it looks like it's gas. Like I said, I just want to shake the cart a little bit. Make sure we don't have any gas or water coming out of the fuel. Looks like we're good there. That should do it. There's that. Now we do have to, like I said, we have to pull the carb off because it definitely had water in it. For sure. Taking the air box off now. Looks like she's backfired a couple of times. Which these spacer studs, I'll show you here in a second, they only screw into the carburetor. They don't go all the way through into the motor. These things here, these only screw into the carburetor to help hold the airbox on. And they're the spacer that allows the spark arrestor plate to stand off the intake. And we'll probably change out this PCV hose. Positive crankcase ventilation is what PCV stands for. Okay. Yeah, she's a bit gnarly. There we go. Okay. Then we'll pop off the throttle. Linkage here. Hopefully. These things are a pain in the ass to get off. They don't come off easily. There we go. I can't get this off. I'm going to dump the carb out through the overflow port into my little small oil catch pan here. Initially, yeah, I see a little bit of water, a few water bubbles in there. Now again, I grab the hose and then I rotate, so that'll allow me to remove the fuel line from what it's attached to. All right, now I'm going to take fuel line, run the pump so I can flush the fuel system out. Okay. Yeah, a bit gnarly. I don't know if you can see that in there. It's a bit chunky. All right, so I cracked this bowl loose, take this bottom nut off. Spin it just a little. Oh, yeah. I think it's safe to say that it's got some crap in there. That's rust. That's a bit slimy. Washed it in the parts washer. I mean, it's better. I'd have to put it in an ultrasonic cleaner to get a lot of that garbage off there, but that's about as good as it's going to get right at the moment. And the reason I clean them in the parts washer first is because if I did all that cleaning, all the crap that falls into the carburetor, or that makes its way into the carburetor, gets cleaned out when I take it apart and clean it. Because otherwise, if I cleaned it first and then parts washed it, I'd have to clean it again. Because it's a good chance that I would get some of the shit in there. There we go. I don't know if this is going to fit in there. No, it's not. Sometimes you got to do just what you can do. Now, normally I would take this completely apart. I don't have that screwdriver that I normally would use for that. Okay. Wow, it's just like rusty mud. It's like they drove it into a lake. And make sure you let the carburetor cleaner dry or evaporate before you put it back together. If you don't, you're going to have condensation, because as the carburetor cleaner is drying and evaporating, it makes the surface that it's on get colder. And if you're in an area where it's very warm outside, and this will especially happen more or less in the summer, the condensation will collect on the metal surface, and you'll have condensation inside your carb again. That's why I usually do the carburetor first, so I can let it dry out. Now I'll do the bowl, which, wow, that's like, you got steel here and there was water sitting in there, so a little bit of rust. Had a little bit of rust. So, again, don't overthink it too much, guys, when you're doing this stuff. It's not super, super critical. I mean, yes, you have to get it clean. You can't let it stay dirty, because it will be a problem if you don't clean it good. But there's, you want to do a good job, of course, but I've seen so many different videos I was checking out where it's like, it's just a golf cart. It's just a golf cart. You don't have to be super, super critical of certain things. Now, like I said, you want to make sure the carburetor is nice and clean. You get as much debris out as you can. You're probably never going to get all 100% of it out. There's just, especially if it's really dirty, unless you have an ultrasonic cleaner, which I do, but I don't have any solution in it. I just don't have any chemical in it at the moment. So it's clean parts go in the bowl. So here's the float valve. How does it look? Not too shabby, actually. Not too shabby. So I'm just holding it by the stem. Just going to give it a quick rinse. And I'm going to immediately tap dry the rubber float. See, this one has a rubber tip on it. Oh, and this one also has, on the float itself, a slot for that to go into. So the float actually can hold the float valve Drop that in. And then once I put it back together, after touching it, I'm going to rinse it out again just to make sure. So like I'll rinse the bowl off and all this stuff real quick just to... Carburetor cleaner's cheap. You got it apart, you might as well. So I'll let that air dry for a minute. Now I know some of you might not know this. This isn't one of them, but some carburetors, this jet comes out. It's not the case with this one. And believe me, carburetor cleaner will work wonders in these things. It will clean them out really well. Yeah, this is all one machined piece. Normally that tube that's in there comes out, but for some reason it doesn't want to, and I don't want to break the carb. Like somebody else has been in here at one point and they kind of went Hannibal Lecter on the inside of this carburetor. The shaft on this frickin' screwdriver is bent, so it's hard. I had a hard time tightening that down. Now when you tighten these up, you don't have to crank them down real tight either. Okay? You crank them down too tight, you're just going to be damaging stuff, so don't crank them down too tight. What I like to do is I like to put the drain towards the fuel line side. I'll put this nut on. Battery died on the camera, of course. Just getting ready to reinstall it in the cart. Gaskets all look good. Terrible ass design on this thing here, I tell you. I'm going to install the throttle. Okay, I'll put that there. And then tighten up the set screw. Again, don't go reefing it down. Just make it make it tight enough so it doesn't fall out when you pull it. And then you give it a little tug just to make sure it works properly, and we're good. Okay, so now we got one overflow here. We got the fuel line, which tip of this thing's a bit gnarly, so I'm just gonna lop it off. And try to throw it in the garbage can, but it bounces back at me. Okay, and I'm going to flip over the hose clamp so that I can actually tighten it up. It'll be right up against the... Oh, look at that, it's eating my glove. Phillips head here. I should just grab a nut driver. I don't know what's wrong with me. Oh, it's eating my glove again. Stop eating my glove. I'm going to put it down on the bottom. That's better. Much, much better. Adjust the clamp so it's out of the way so I can put that overflow tube on. If you don't have this tube on here, it's not the end of the world, but your crankcase gases are going to be puking all over your starter generator. Yeah, let's remove the carb. Just so we can gain access to that, and then we'll put everything back on. Because these ensure that the crankcase gases, that's a tongue twister, are injected back into the intake and reburned properly. That's what the whole roll of that tube is. That is what the roll of that tube is. In case you were wondering. What a piss poor design. Okay. See, they don't want you tampering with any of this stuff. That's why they make it so difficult. But it's stupid. Looks like that's going to be our best angle of attack right there. So now, I'll fight with this for a moment, getting that on there. And it's not that these carts are subject to any emissions testing or anything like that, but it's just good practice to replace broken hoses, and it just keeps everything cleaner. Now, in case you're all wondering, I use this Gum Out Jet Spray Carbon Choke Cleaner. I like this stuff. I like the can. This is a 16-ounce can. I think they make them bigger too. Like I said in the end of all of my videos, if you ever make it to the end, all of the products that I use to run the business and make these videos, stuff like the Gum Out, I think I have in the description. So just look in that hit the show more button underneath the video. That'll be the video's description. You can see all the stuff that I use on a regular basis. Equipment, camera gear, lighting, tools. Okay, now that we got that, let's get this on. I'm going to do a test fire before I put this completely back together. See, the governor is all out of whack adjusted on this. Look at that, smooth start. All right. I know there's been a couple of comments too about me using power tools and certain things. A couple of things to say about that. One, I know the limits of my tools. I know how to use them carefully. I know when to stop cranking down on them with the tool. Two, time is money. Time is money. Look at that brand spanking new air filter. Nice and shiny. Spark plugs are done, air filter's done, fuel filter's done, fuel system is clean. Next we have to do oil change. All right, so let's get the oily stuff done here. This ratchet is done for. Wow, thems are on there tight. Holy crap, those are tight. Brake cable always gets in the way when you're doing this. So if you guys are ever wondering what that noise is that you hear in the background of a lot of my videos, the vibrating and the scraping and the humming and whatnot, I have a micro wind turbine on my roof, which keeps a battery charge that I have that I use for jump starting golf carts and charging golf carts, like gas golf cart batteries. And when the wind turns, when the wind blows, the wind turbine turns and faces into the wind. And a lot of times it's steel on steel because there's no bearings or slip ring on it. It's just one of those micro wind turbines that doesn't have all that stuff. So it makes a little bit of noise when it rotates on its mast. And when it starts to spin up and gain rotational speed, it just makes a vibrate. It hums. It's not the bearings. The bearings are good in it. It's the internals, the magnets, the permanent magnets passing by the stator at a high speed. which is where the electricity is generated from. So that's what that humming noise is you hear in the background. Now in previous videos you may hear a dull roar. That is my furnace. I have a hot air furnace that I run when it's really cold. I don't have it on today because it's not that cold, so the filter looks good. There's no junk in it. Now notice that the O-ring is not in here, in the slot. It's actually stuck to the filter here. So that's something you have to be very mindful of when you change the oil on these things, that O-ring gets, you either replace it, see in there, and it slipped right in perfectly for me. Either replace it or don't. You gotta be very careful. Like I've always said in videos with these filters here, you don't want to over tighten because you will strip out the aluminum. Just want to be tight enough so they don't back out. Let's fill it up with oil. It's been a couple of days since I've worked on this cart. Just gonna wipe off this. Make sure you wipe off around your oil filler. You don't get any dirt down in there. I've already had this loose when I took the valve cover off. So I don't know if you hear that whirling sound. That's what I was talking about. All right, oil can. Let's see what you're made of. Okay, so we got to put a little bit over 1.5 quarts of oil in this. Crack the lid. It goes quick. Look at that. It overflowed on me, you son of a bitch. Okay, so there's a learning experience right there. I'll wipe all that oil up now. You fucker. See, and I knew that. And it just... New oil can, that's what I'm telling you. I didn't overfill the engine, I just poured it too fast. It's full anyway, we're good. We hit the mark. Okay, so now just to let you know, for something like this, now you've seen that I spilled the oil all over the motor, all over this engine here. I will take this outside and pressure wash it and clean it up with some absorbent. I won't bring this back to the customer like this. I mean, I'm not going to be able to get all of it. Some of it is going to have to burn off. But it's unfortunate that that spilled all over like that. It's a bit annoying. It's rust prevention. That's all it is. You know, some guys will just leave it and not clean it, but I'm going to definitely clean it. There it goes. Okay, runs good, it sounds better. Made a mess, not too bad. Not that bad of a mess. I might have to change my gloves, they're all slippery now. Okay, so I'm at 13.5 volts with the load. Just under 11 volts, release the load, it jumps back up to 12.8 volts. All right, so that tells me that we're good there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the charging system just by watching the meter to see if it climbs. is. It's holding steady at about 14.5 volts. Okay, so our charging system is working as it should. The battery is in good health according to this meter. It's not a discharge meter, it's just a load meter. You have to understand that. And it's a very crude way to detect any issues. Okay, so now what we're going to do is clean this off. I'm going to check the lights real quick while we're here. Both headlights are working. Both tail lights are working. There are no turn signals on this cart or brake lights. It is just a basic light kit. We got 1/2 inch and 9/16 nuts on that, as they piggyback some of the wiring with different nuts, and they're not really super tight. Actually, I don't know why they piggybacked here, because this doesn't make any sense. Unless they did at one point have something else on here, because see, I don't need that now. Wow, that's not even tight. It's been a while since this cart's been here, so it's definitely due for a service. Wow, that one wasn't tight at all either. So they may have had some issues if we didn't catch this when we did. Okay. And these are stainless steel hardware, so that's one thing to keep in mind, is use stainless steel hardware around your batteries, because the corrosion will destroy plain old steel stuff. Okay, so traditional battery terminal cleaners, like the spiral ones you put on your drill, won't work on these. And I get this question asked quite a bit. People say, why don't you clean the top of the terminal? It looks like you're only cleaning the faces or the front or where the bolt goes through. And the simple answer is because the nut and bolt that goes through only contacts this face. It's not on top, it's right here. That's it. That's all you really need to clean. So you really don't have to you don't have to clean the entire terminal. I mean, you could clean the top. Clean this part here and do this. But you're just expending valuable energy. There's no corrosion on these, which is good. This one's got a little bit of rust on it, but it's not terrible. It's only surface rust. There we go. Nice and clean. Now I'll clean the lighting circuit here, just to knock some of the boogers off. But this cart's in really good shape, so there's really nothing wrong with it. And a lot of the stuff that you see on these terminals is dirt. I am going to tighten that down because, oh, that's all the way tight. Never mind. Okay, so we'll do our positive first. Reason why you do your positive connection first, if you slip with the wrench, the negative disconnected, you're not gonna, I know this is plastic, but say you're near metal components like the club cars. If you slip while putting the positive connection back together and touch the frame when the negative is already connected, you're gonna basically short the system out. So to avoid that, hook up your positive first and then your negative. But when disconnecting, you disconnect your negative first and then your positive. You know what? I don't like that. I'm going to disconnect that positive side so I can reroute this wire to underneath the battery handle on this one. See, I don't like how that's crossing over like that. And one thing to keep in mind too with these carts is you got it when you're looking at your polarity, try to find the polarity identifier on the battery itself. See, like right here, it's right there. There's the positive and there's the negative. Don't go by the color of the battery cables, because a lot of the manufacturers now are using basically the same color code as what's used in residential wiring, where and it's the same on trailers too. Trailers are wired exactly the same way, where they use black for positive and bare for ground or white for ground. Like on a trailer, 9 times out of 10, your white is going to be your ground. Your red and your blacks are going to be your hots. And that's very similar to how it's set up in a house. In North America, at least, where your color code is white, black, and green. White being common, black being hot, and green being your earth or ground. And they're basically following suit with this. Okay, battery's cleaned. Now, if it comes down to it and you really want to make this super clean, go right ahead and clean around that battery terminal. All we care about is the battery terminal. And again, if I had my pressure washer here, I would have cleaned this cart before it came in, and this wouldn't have been a problem. But we're working with what we have right now. We're going to have to wash it anyway, so we may have to reapply that. So, all right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. I'm still waiting for the customer to get back to me about the back seat. Maybe we'll get a video on that. If not, this cart is considered done. So I really appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. Be sure to open the video's description section to check out links to products I use every single day to bring you these videos and to run my business. Check out my website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. All those links are down below. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it. Hit subscribe to see more videos, and be sure to hit the bell icon to be notified anytime I upload a video. So, all right, guys, until next time, we'll see you in the next video.